The Human Hunters of Sarajevo. A call for reckoning and justice. The horror we are only now confronting. In the shadow of what remains one of the longest sieges in modern history, a horrifying new chapter is emerging. Rich foreign tourists allegedly paid to hunt civilians for sport, perched in sniper nests overlooking Sarajevo. These are not idle rumors. They are claims being taken seriously by prosecutors in Italy. This grotesque phenomenon, described in the documentary Sarajevo Safari, directed by Miran Zapanic, and now part of a formal investigation, demands not just our attention but our outrage. It's not just a crime of war. It is the commodification of human life, deeply entwined with the brutal machinery of ethnic cleansing, and a stain on global justice that must be confronted. For the people of Sarajevo, for all survivors of the Bosnian War, and for the conscience of the world, this is a moment of reckoning. What is being alleged? The sniper tourism phenomenon 1. The claims. What Sarajevo Safari reveals. The 2022 documentary Sarajevo Safari, directed by Miran Zapanic, brings to light accounts that during the siege of Sarajevo, 1992 to 1996, wealthy foreigners paid Bosnian Serb military units to take sniper positions and shoot at civilians. According to witnesses in the film, including Edin Subasic, a retired Bosnian army intelligence analyst, captured Serb volunteers allegedly admitted that foreigners among the snipers existed. The guests were allegedly not motivated by ideology or politics but by sheer thrill, rich people who love guns, who perhaps go to shooting ranges or on safari in Africa, as journalist Ezio Gavazzini later summarized. The documentary makes a particularly chilling allegation. There was a price list. Killing children was more expensive. These sniper positions were reportedly in hills held by the Army of Republika Srpska, VRS, with organized logistics, weapons, binoculars and spotters set up as if for a guided hunt. The film claims such tourist shooters came from many countries, not only Italy, but also the United States, France, Germany, Canada and Russia. Legal action is underway inspired by the documentary. Ezio Gavazzini, an Italian journalist and writer, filed a formal complaint. The complaint is supported by Guido Salvini, a respected former magistrate, and Benjamina Karic, former mayor of Sarajevo 2021 to 2024. Milan prosecutors led by Alessandro Gobi have opened an investigation for voluntary homicide aggravated by cruelty and abject motives. According to various sources, the suspects paid between €80,000 and €100,000 for these weekend sniper excursions. According to the complaint, some of the participants departed from Trieste, flew to Belgrade, then Yugoslavia, and then traveled to Bosnian Serb-controlled positions. The Milan investigation is not the only response. Bosnian authorities also received a criminal report from Karic in 2022 following the documentary's release. Prosecutors are looking into whether Serbia's intelligence services or military structures may have enabled or facilitated the tourism. Scale of the sniper carnage during the siege. Sniper fire was one of the most feared threats. According to Zila Mastalik Kasata, Institute for Researching Crimes Against Humanity and International Law, University of Sarajevo, more than 300 snipers were active. The same source says snipers killed 225 people, including 60 children, though not all deaths have been definitively tied to tourist snipers. At the moment, none of the alleged tourist snipers have yet been publicly identified or charged, beyond persons unknown. Historical and moral context. The Siege of Sarajevo. To grasp the depth of this alleged crime, one must understand the horror that Sarajevo endured for nearly 4 years. 1. The siege. A city under siege, 1992 to 1996. The siege of Sarajevo lasted from April 1992 to February 1996, making it one of the longest urban sieges in modern history. The city was encircled by the Army of Republika Srpska VRS, under the command of Bosnian Serb leadership, including Radovan Karadzic and General Ratko Mladic. Civilians lived under constant threat. Artillery bombardment, mortar fire and sniper fire from hills around the city. Key areas like Mesa Selimovic Boulevard, known to residents as Sniper Alley, became deadly zones where crossing the street could mean death. The siege killed thousands. According to ANSA and other reports, more than 11,500 civilians died, including large numbers of children. The war was marked not just by military battles, but by ethnic cleansing, mass graves, and crimes against humanity. Point 2. Accountability in the war's aftermath. Several senior Bosnian Serb leaders were prosecuted by the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia (ICTY) for crimes during the war, including genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. Yet many lower-level perpetrators, especially snipers, were never brought to justice. According to reports, no sniper has been held accountable for their role in civilian killings during the siege. The Sarajevo Safari documentary and the new Italian investigation represent a rare effort to fill this accountability gap, and to expose a sin deeper and more grotesque than many dared to speak of. Why this is a unique crime, and why it matters. 1. The commodification of murder. What makes these allegations so morally appalling is that they convert the sanctity of human life into a luxury experience. According to witnesses, these tourist snipers were paid not just to kill but for specific targets. Civilians walking in the streets. Some reportedly paid even more to shoot children. The claim is not about ideology. Participants allegedly came motivated by thrill, not by any cause. This is not typical wartime. This is a form of blood sport with civilians reduced to game. Institutional complicity. These are not isolated extremist individuals. The allegations suggest structured facilitation. The Milan complaint argues that there was a system, logistics, transport, sniper positions, weapons, arranged by Serb forces. Testimonies suggest that these operations may not have been hidden. Serbian state security may have been involved. The flights reportedly used to ferry the snipers came from Trieste to Belgrade, implicating cross-border coordination. The documenting of such operations raises urgent questions. Were these safaris a side business? A conscious tool of terror? A way to monetize the war? 3. The global dimension of accountability. The alleged tourists came from multiple Western countries, Italy, US, Germany, France, and Russia, suggesting transnational involvement. That means, war crimes may not be confined to Bosnia alone. The Western nations whose citizens allegedly participated must face moral and legal scrutiny. This is not about just Bosnia's problem. It's a test for international justice. Can war criminals be held accountable regardless of nationality, wealth, or political connections? The investigation. Promise, doubt, and urgency. The Milan prosecutors' probe prosecutor Alessandro Gobi is leading the investigation. The formal complaint, submitted by Ezio Gavazzini, spans 17 pages and names specific possible perpetrators, describes how the trips allegedly worked, and includes witness testimony. The authorities are investigating voluntary murder aggravated by cruelty and abject motives. A serious charge that reflects the severity of the alleged crimes. The complaint mentions at least 5 suspected Italians, businessmen from Milan, Turin, and Trieste. According to media sources, one of the suspects is a Milan-based cosmetic surgery clinic owner. This is not a purely historical investigation. Prosecutors are actively trying to track down survivors, cross-check archival materials, and call witnesses. Bosnian legal response. Following the premiere of Sarajevo Safari, Benjamin Akaric, then mayor of Sarajevo, filed criminal charges in Bosnia. Bosnia's prosecutor's office reportedly opened a case in November 2022. However, war crimes in Bosnia face huge political and logistical challenges. Investigating after decades, locating witnesses, untangling memory. The terrain is difficult. Challenges and skepticism. Some of the allegations remain difficult to verify independently. Not every sniper death is conclusively tied to tourist snipers. War veterans and Serb communities have strongly denied the claims. According to DW, some call them absolute and heinous lies. The passage of time complicates accountability. Memories fade, documents are lost, and witnesses may die or refuse to come forward. But despite these obstacles, the investigation itself is a vital sign that justice may still be possible. Moral and political implications. What is at stake for Bosnia and Herzegovina? Healing and justice for survivors of Sarajevo. These allegations reopen deep wounds. The idea that outsiders treated their city as a playground for blood is profoundly traumatizing. If proven, it would rewrite parts of the war narrative. Not just a cradle of siege and suffering, but a targeted stage for macabre entertainment. Accountability would mean more than punishment. It means recognition. It means admitting that Sarajevo's suffering was not just collateral damage, but in part a deliberate spectacle. For Serbia, institutional guilt. These allegations, if proven, implicate not only Bosnian Serb forces but possibly Serbian state structures, especially intelligence services. Serbia today continues to struggle with its wartime legacy. A serious judicial reckoning through trials, archives, declassification, is needed. Not just for Karadzic or Mladic, but for lesser recognized crimes like sniper tourism. For Europe and the West, complicity and power. This isn't just a Bosnian problem. These are allegations involving foreign nationals from Western countries. Europe and Western governments must confront their citizens' potential involvement. The investigation tests whether European justice systems will truly prosecute war crimes, irrespective of nationality or wealth. For civil society, for journalists, for human rights advocates, this is a moment to demand transnational justice, not impunity. For international law and ethics, there is a fundamental moral question. Can killing innocent civilians be commodified without accountability? The alleged war tourism challenges the core of international humanitarian law. It would be a form of crime that is not just violent but also commercial. A perverse marketplace of death that, if left unpunished, it sets a dangerous precedent. That war can be exploited as a sport and civilians as targets if you have the money. A demand for action. What must happen next? Full and independent investigation. Both Italian and Bosnian prosecutors must ensure the investigation is thorough, transparent, and independent. Witnesses, including survivors, former soldiers, and intelligence personnel, must be protected and encouraged to testify. International bodies, e.g., war crimes units of the EU/UN, should support the investigations, offer technical expertise, and help declassify relevant archives. Truth and Memory. Bosnia and Herzegovina must establish a truth commission or strengthen existing ones that formally investigates these sniper tourism allegations. Memorialization is needed, not just for the siege but specifically for the sniper victims and potentially for those murdered by tourist shooters. Public education must integrate these revelations into school curricula, museum exhibits, and cultural memory. Legal accountability. Those identified in the Milan investigation must be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Voluntary homicide aggravated by cruelty and abject motives is the right starting point. Serbia and Bosnia must examine command responsibility. Who authorized, coordinated, or facilitated these sniper positions? Reparations should be considered, not just in criminal law but in civil or restorative justice forms for the families of victims. International pressure. European governments, civil society, and international human rights organizations must demand accountability. Countries that may have had nationals participate must cooperate actively, providing documents, helping identify suspects, and prosecuting where possible. Ethical reckoning. This story should spark a broader global debate. How do we guard humanity in war? How do we ensure that war does not become a marketplace for rich tourists? International legal norms must evolve. Perhaps wartime tourism needs explicit legal prohibition, sanction, and enforcement. Sarajevo's cry for justice is not an echo. The allegations exposed in Sarajevo Safari and now under investigation in Milan are not simply sensationalism. If proven, they represent a catastrophic failure of humanity. A moment when civilians were not just slaughtered, they were commodified. The people of Sarajevo, who endured decades of siege, bombardment, and sniper fire, deserve more than memory. They deserve justice. The world must hear their call. Accountability now. Not in decades, not in vague promises, not in empty commemorations, but real legal reckoning, institutional responsibility, and moral closure. Let this moment, this investigation, matter. Let it become a turning point. Because if we fail to hold the human hunters accountable, we fail Sarajevo. We fail Bosnia. And we fail the very idea of justice.